Hello and welcome. Hope you're doing well. We have a story today from my collection, Piano Town, which is a very low key horror story about gut racing. And the story is called Gut Racing. So let's find out what gut racing actually is. Gut racing. James, Dr. Hartman, gathered his keys and wallet for a trip to the variety store, needing things such as sturdy fishing line, a lead weight shaped like a lozenge, and two sturdy eye hooks. The man duct taped to the kitchen table in his living room didn't weigh so much, and that was good. James, Dr. Hartman, needed some soft cheese as well, perhaps baby Swiss. "I'll be back," said James. The man on the table nodded. His mother had never given him a whole stick of gum, just half a stick, and now this. James, Dr. Hartman, pulled the door closed and wrapped a bit of wire around a nail to keep it shut. He noted the smell of meat drying in the sun and said hello to the little crippled girl in the baby pool. He picked up a can of hairspray and read about the hitchhiker named Eddie Kavanaugh, who was duct taped to his table. The man would soon die a slow, horrible death, first swallowing, words jumbled here, attached to a lead weight until it passed through his gut. Down the crooked sidewalk James, Dr. Hartman, went. He smelled cookies. Brown cars puttered by. He glanced the yellow courthouse. He saw a wad of keys and hesitated. One of the keys looked familiar. He remembered the man duct taped to the table and moved on. The man taped to the table raised his head and gazed down a row of shirt buttons to his splotched brass belt buckle. Everything seemed to be in order. He smelled hairspray. "You're kidding me," said James, Dr. Hartman, to Gleason. "You'll need piano wire, not fishing line," said Gleason. He owned the variety store. He handed James, Dr. Hartman, a can of hairspray. James, Dr. Hartman, read aloud. "Fishing line is not sufficient to saw through a carcass, even from the inside out. What someone needs to do is buy thin piano wire instead." "Have a good one," said Gleason. He handed the bag of piano wire, a lead weight shaped like a lozenge, and two sturdy eye hooks to James, Dr. Hartman. "Don't forget the soft cheese," and he winked. There was a Catholic church in Piano Town, but no one attended. The other church, the Unitarian, wasn't really a church. It was a fellowship. Boisterous Rainey, everyone loved her name, led the fellowship each week in song and introduced the week's speaker. It was kind of like taking classes at a New Age junior college, but without the diploma or student loans. Boisterous was a retired faculty member from the nearby private college, Tuck University, where she had taught marketing for some 25 years. She knew her 4 Ps, product, price, place, and promotion, and consulted part-time at the hairspray factory just a few blocks away. Boisterous led the assembly in a simple song about the basic things in life, and then told an anecdote about flipping her brother's four-wheeler when she was young and killing her cousin. She ate carrot sticks while she talked. It was that death that had caused Boisterous to leave the Catholic Church and begin her search for why bad things happen to good people. Surely God wasn't so cruel. She acknowledged the presence of the priest, Father McGlone. The speaker that Sunday was a Feldenkrais method practitioner and a Baptist Buddhist. Boisterous looked out at the audience. The shimmery gray hair, the worn corduroy jackets, the plain dresses with turtle brooches, and the clean sneakers. "Welcome," said Boisterous. She was a large woman with broad shoulders and a long nose. She wore a violet skirt with a loose white men's shirt and sandals. "We've all seen today's speaker, Dr. James Hartman, riding around town on his single-speed bicycle, and some of us know what good wine he makes. Yum. Let's welcome him." There was a light scattering of applause. "Thank you, Boisterous," said James, Dr. Hartman. He smelled lemons and perhaps pipe tobacco. "Today I'd like to talk about my experiments on a hitchhiker I picked up over a month ago. As we speak, he's duct taped to my dining room table, and the door to the sanctuary opened, and an elderly couple entered, both wearing sweaters from the 1970s. And a thin piece of piano wire, over 30 feet in length, is making its way through his intestines." James, Dr. Hartman, noticed a couple of hands raised and paused to take questions. "How did you get him to swallow the piano wire?" said a man with cancer. "Good question," said James, Dr. Hartman. "Basically, I attached a small fishing lead weight to the end of the piano wire and wrapped it inside a piece of soft cheese to make it easier to swallow." "I see," said the man with cancer. "Another question," said James, Dr. Hartman. "On average, how far does the piano wire advance each day?" The woman asking was in her 30s. She made jewelry from fossilized animal poo. "After the lead weight passed into the small intestine, I'd estimate that the piano wire has been advancing at a rate of 6 inches per day. The small and large intestines are roughly 27 feet long." "Can you do the math for us?" asked a teenager dressed like a wizard from Harry Potter. "Well, I'm no mathematician. Perhaps we should defer to Dr. Pinky in the back." James, Dr. Hartman, chuckled. Dr. Pinky gripped the folding chair in front of him and stood. "Well, there are 12 inches to the foot. That would make 324 inches divided by 6. That would be 54 days for the wire to emerge from the hitchhiker's rectum. I hope I'm using the proper language." "That sounds about right," said James, Dr. Hartman. "Another 30 days or so and I'll see the lead weight, shaped like a lozenge, emerging from, as Dr. Pinky stated, the hitchhiker's rectum." "That's curious and fascinating," said Boisterous. James, Dr. Hartman, nodded. He took a paper towel from his pocket and blew his nose. "And now let's talk about the Feldenkrais method of somatic education." "That's what I'm here for," said the priest. He rubbed his hands together as if presented with a sumptuous meal. As predicted at the Unitarian Church by Dr. Pinky, the lead weight attached to the piano wire emerged from the hitchhiker's anus on the 54th day. The hitchhiker sold insurance, never bothered a soul, and had a wife and 2 grown children. His Dodge Dart had broken down, and James, Dr. Hartman, had given him a lift from the interstate. James, Dr. Hartman, waited a few more days until there was as much wire coming from the hitchhiker's mouth as from down there. And then the experiment began. To get started, he let the famished hitchhiker sip a can of strawberry Ensure laced with crushed Dilaudid. The 2 eye hooks were already in place in the basement, one on either side of the cement block room, placed about 6 inches from the floor. The floor was tile and had been waxed to a blistering shine by James, Dr. Hartman. He didn't want friction to impede his studies. He struggled with the hitchhiker, dragging him by the arms to a red polyurethane mechanics creeper. He laid the hitchhiker on his back and began to duct tape him firmly to the wheeled cart. Screak, tear, He had to hurry before he woke up. The hitchhiker awoke and his free arm swung like a baseball bat, catching James, Dr. Hartman, on the chin. He fell backward. The hitchhiker screamed, but his taped mouth was filled with yellow foam. James, Dr. Hartman, grabbed a tire iron and cracked the hitchhiker's skull. A dark blue bruise rose across the man's cheek and right orbit. Bright blood stained his teeth and trickled from his mouth. The hitchhiker's name was Eddie Kavanaugh. His parents had been missionaries in El Salvador. He was naked except for the duct tape. The otherwise empty room smelled like coconut shells, a combination of concrete and floor wax. James, Dr. Hartman, dusted himself off just like in a movie. To each end of the piano wire, he affixed a wire leader of 4 feet, 3 inches. He attached each wire leader to an eye hook and removed the slack. Now would be a good time to put a feeding tube down Eddie's throat, so he did that. He would vary the feedings to see if the hitchhiker's speed across the floor varied. If the hitchhiker vomited, would reverse intestinal motility make him move backward? Who knew? Quick recap. Dr. James Hartman, a Feldenkrais method practitioner, has abducted hitchhiker Eddie Kavanaugh and duct-taped him to a mechanic's creeper in his basement. James, Dr. Hartman, has fed a thin piano wire through Eddie's digestive tract. The wire extends from Eddie's mouth as well as from his anus. Each end of the wire is attached to an eye hook on either side of the room. There is no slack in the line. The muscular contractions of Eddie's intestines pull him slowly along the wire across the room, about 6 inches per day. James, Dr. Hartman, pushes Ensure and water through a feeding tube in Eddie's nose. The room now smells like diarrhea, even with the diapers, which James, Dr. Hartman, must change 2 or 3 times a day. James, Dr. Hartman, thin and with a limp, descends the narrow wooden stairs into the concrete block basement. He eyeballs the day's progress, a good inch since he last checked. The hitchhiker, Eddie, who is thinking of the stray dogs at his trailer that need to be fed, as well as his wife and children, watches James, Dr. Hartman, with crazed eyes. His back aches and he feels the skin on his buttocks and neck wearing away. The feeding tube has caused weeping sores in his nose. He can't scratch, can't move, and the fluorescent light is always on overhead. He's been cold for the past week and shivers. "What you need is a friend," said James, Dr. Hartman. "I may invite some people over from the Unitarian Church to sit and talk with you, if that's okay." Eddie tried to nod yes and made his eyes say, "Great idea." Meanwhile, James, Dr. Hartman, got lucky and picked up another hitchhiker, a robust woman named Pearl. She had been waiting at a bus stop and just hopped in like a puppy when James, Dr. Hartman, drove up like it was the natural thing to do. Pearl was headed to the strip mall on the other side of the highway, but didn't mind a little detour, as James, Dr. Hartman, put it. Once inside James's, Dr. Hartman's, 1930s California bungalow, he let Pearl interact with his pet iguana Hermosa. He then clubbed her on the back of the head with an aluminum baseball bat and hefted her heavy frame thud, thump, thud down the basement stairs. He would duct tape her to the floor near the far wall and let her watch Eddie as he progressed inch by inch via intestinal motility across the floor. The plan was to pass a piano wire through Pearl as well and let the two race. "Eddie, this is Pearl," said James, Dr. Hartman. "Pearl, Eddie." The piano wire attached to the lead weight took only 51 days to pass through Pearl's gastrointestinal tract. Either her intestines were shorter than Eddie's, or her intestines were more powerful. She seemed to be having trouble breathing, her lungs sounding a bit wet. So James, Dr. Hartman, propped her up with a foam wedge before he duct taped her to a mechanic's creeper. Duct tape was not cheap, and the foam wedge cost $42.99, not to mention the adult diapers. The doorbell rang, and James, Dr. Hartman, answered. He ushered in the Flybetters, an elderly couple from the Unitarian Church. He prepared mint tea and led the Flybetters into the basement. Mr. Flybetter was a tall, gangly fellow with a swish of white hair. His wife was somewhat shriveled, but still had a pretty smile. The Flybetters surveyed the plain room. They both wore combinations of orange and brown. There was only one chair, a red diner chair. "This is Eddie." James, Dr. Hartman, pointed to Eddie, who had a red 3 painted on his chest over the duct tape. "And I'd like to introduce Pearl." Pearl's number was 28. Her large breasts were taped to her sides. Both Eddie and Pearl mumbled through the tape across their mouths and made desperate pleas with their eyes. Mr. Flybetter let his wife take the chair. He poked at the ceiling, a drop ceiling with acoustic panels. He then asked a series of questions about how James, Dr. Hartman, fed his racers. Did he bathe them? "Just their private areas," was the response. Mrs. Flybetter wanted to know what air freshener scent he was using in the basement. "Lilac," was the reply. "More tea," said James, Dr. Hartman. He placed the warm kettle on Eddie's stomach. "No, thank you," said Mr. Flybetter. "Pretty interesting setup you've got here. Well, the races can't begin until more wire emerges from between Pearl's buttocks. I plan to invite a few people over, perhaps in a week." "I see," said Mrs. Flybetter, disappointment rimming her voice. "Well, old man, let's be going." She clutched her black purse to her chest, ready to drive to the grocery store and buy some moist cat food. Father McGlawn, somewhat skeptical of the whole affair, followed Boisterous into James's, Dr. Hartman's, house. He liked the little fireplace to the left with the built-in bookshelves. Cracks ran through the old plaster walls. "Welcome," said James, Dr. Hartman. Today is the day of judgment. He had read that earlier on a can of hairspray while fetching a newspaper from the corner store. Boisterous smiled. A plate of carrot sticks and raw almonds sat on the dining room table. "Well, I'm excited to be a part of this. I'm sorry Moore couldn't make it. There's the double whammy of an antique car show and an improv poetry festival." "Competition," said James, Dr. Hartman, "is what greases this country's wheels." Father McGlawn ate an almond and secreted a few into the folds of his maroon robe. Why was there always a crowd at the Unitarian Church? It didn't make sense. But neither did he consider himself an old dog. Perhaps he could learn some new tricks, and this gut racing sounded cruel but interesting. James, Dr. Hartman, retrieved a bottle of homemade wine from the cabinet in the butler's pantry. The cloudy glass made the wine look like pig's blood. After pouring 3 Dixie cups of wine, they made their way to the basement. The scene was set. On one mechanic's creeper in the middle of the room lay Pearl. Her eyes looked like blown light bulbs. She seemed to be in a coma. 2 feet away was Eddie. He still had some life in him. He tried to sit up, scream, shake his head, and kick his feet. Duct tape is strong, though. "My goodness," said Boisterous, "this is one waxed floor." She surveyed the pair of hitchhikers with piano wire emerging from their mouths at one end and from between their legs at the other. Father McGlawn was silent. "Well, let's get going," said James. He sipped his wine. "Any friendly wagers?" Of course, I'm biased, so you may want some insider information. Pearl is fatter than Eddie, said Boisterous. Does that mean her intestines are perhaps longer or fatter even? Said James, Dr. Hartman. He pondered the logic of Boisterous's question. Just because clouds are white doesn't mean they're made of milk. Father McGlawn drained his wine and placed the cup on a metal TV tray. James, Dr. Hartman, took a roll of silk tape and placed a strip in front of each mechanic's creeper just in front of the wheels. This was the starting line. Whoever traveled the farthest in the next hour would be judged the winner. To make things more interesting, I'm going to push a can of expired strawberry Ensure along with a bottle of magnesium citrate down each feeding tube, said James, Dr. Hartman. He put on a pair of latex gloves and prepared his egg timer. He asked Boisterous to push the liquids down Pearl's tube while he took care of Eddie. Twist went the egg timer. Tick, tick, and the race was on. During the intervening hour, the three discussed why it was so hard to keep children attending the Unitarian Church. Well, everyone is so old to begin with, said Boisterous. At 48, she was a youngster in the church. Do you think the pagans scare the children, said James, Dr. Hartman. They wear those wild outfits, sometimes without underwear. Father McGlawn agreed. He thought the pagans were freakish. They all lived together in a commune, but they were friendly, especially the young lady with pointy ears like an elf. Before you could say, "Skin the cat," the egg timer rang its awful ring. The race was over. Both racers, their diapers full of liquid stool, looked exhausted. Pearl was definitely unconscious, but her bowels were in full gear. Eddie's eyes darted back and forth. He hoped he was the winner. James, Dr. Hartman, tore another strip of tape, "Squeak," and laid it down in front of the wheels of one creeper and then the other. It was close. He took a yardstick from the local lumber yard and measured the distance between the pieces of Eddie's tape. "Looks like an inch on the dot," he said. Boisterous and Father McGlawn watched together. "Okay, here it is for the marbles," said James. On his knees and with a wrinkled nose, he measured Pearl's motile progress. 1 inch and 5/8. Winner! A look of horror crossed Eddie's swollen face. What next? To celebrate Pearl's victory, an announcement was made at the Unitarian Church. There would be a potluck ceremony to be followed by the unveiling of Pearl's prize. Dr. Pinky brought potato salad with a precise ratio of mayonnaise to mustard. Father McGlawn brought a box of communion wafers. He sprinkled them with cinnamon sugar to make a kind of God cookie. Boisterous could not attend because she had to visit the chiropractor for her knees, but 2 pagans were able to make it, the one who dressed like Harry Potter and the short one with elf ears. After nibbling cookies and drinking several bottles of wine, James, Dr. Hartman, led the group into the basement. He had affixed red balloons to the ceiling with pushpins. The basement reeked of lilac, feces, and urine. Since the race 2 days before, James, Dr. Hartman, had more or less neglected the 2 hitchhikers duct taped to mechanics' creepers. The fluorescent lights blinded Eddie. Pearl was no longer alive and beginning to bloat, but she was still the winner. Father McGlawn noted 2 engine lifts, one at each end of the room. Harry Potter took the single chair, bringing a great look of consternation from Dr. Pinky. The elf woman sat in his lap. "So how does this work?" said Dr. Pinky. "Well, it's pretty simple," said James, Dr. Hartman. "First, we cut the duct tape like this. Next, I attach this end of the wire emerging from Pearl's rectum to this engine lift, just so." He walked to the other side of the room, hooking up the wire to the second engine lift. "And like this, just so, and now we lift." Father McGlawn swallowed hard. The elf woman was bending over and her nipples were showing. "Can I get a little help?" said James, Dr. Hartman. "Sure," said the elf woman. Her father worked on cars and she was handy with an engine lift. She pumped the handle up and down, taking out the slack, and James, Dr. Hartman, did the same. "Well, here's to the winner," said James, and Pearl's body began to lift from the floor, the wire sawing through her carcass. Ah, those poor man and woman duct tape to mechanics' creepers and racing each other via the strength of their intestines. Yes, Piano Town is not a nice place. All right. Thank you.